Zach. Welcome back to the Heroverse. And guys, what a crazy episode of Moon Knight. This will be Moon Knight episode 5, called The Asylum, spoiler review. I'm just here sitting on the couch. Usually I don't do that. I'm at my sister's right now. Usually I sit at the table and I have my, my setup. But I'm just like in pure awe and shock of this episode. This was a really, a very like a lot of information heavy episode, and I'm just like still trying to process it. I'm definitely gonna have to watch this episode again. There was a lot to process. This wasn't the episode I was expecting. But I feel like at the same time, this is the episode I'm happy we got because we're rolling around that, this is the second to last episode. We have one more episode next week, which is insane to me that this season is went so fast. But at the same time, it kind of concerns me because this episode, the way it leaves off, makes me wonder how they're going to fit everything in to episode 6. I feel like I'm afraid that it's going to be rushed. I'm hoping it's a longer episode because we have a lot to still, like, a lot of questions I'm still wondering, and and I still have like a lot of ways of me feeling like how are they going to end this without rushing it, because they've paced this very well. And I'm a little worried that the way they leave this off, there's still a lot of questions, a lot of answers I want answered. But to start off with this episode, we're back in the asylum, and right now we kind of in a way thought we're kind of like, in the way everybody was feeling is like, oh, is this actually like true? Like, what's happening here? Was this all in his head, everything that was happening? But we end up finding out in this episode is that him being in this asylum is pretty much him being, I guess, what was it, Bethany? What was it called? Like, the asylum was his version of, it was Nuat? Duat, and it was his way of, I guess, him trying to balance the scales with Steven, and them trying to balance the scales so they could get to the field of reeds. So pretty much they're in the underworld right now, in Duat, pretty much, like, trying to balance the scales. So they're kind of, like, in a room, pretty much trying to, it's like a judgment room, and this is their chance to balance out the scales so they can get to the field of reeds. But that's of course not what they want to do. Like, at this point, like, Steven's okay with doing this because, he's like, okay, I'm fine with this, you know what I mean? Because he knows about the field of reeds, he knows about how peaceful it is, so he's okay with this. Mark is not okay with this because in a way he wants to get back to stop Harrow, and he wants to save Layla and stuff. Same with Steven. But at this point, he's kind of like this, like, this isn't the worst of it, though, if, we do go to the field of reeds. So seeing this moment where we're bouncing back and forth to, like, Steve, to Mark not wanting to pretty much, uncover, like, doesn't want Steven to uncover the truth about, like, what we've all been waiting to hear and what we've all known was about to happen, was very, sad that he doesn't want Steven to see his, he doesn't want Steven to see his past. So we get a lot of that. We get a lot of, like, the moment where, like, we learn from the hippo, which is the goddess of fertility, of that, she's shocked that, like, asking, are you guys twins? And they're like, no, we're kind of like the same person, but we're not. And, like, she's trying to look through her rule book and seeing, okay, like, this is very odd. And it's very odd that they have two hearts, yet they're one person in a way. And, like, it was very cool to see the hippo's personality, because that was just very funny to me, the way whoever played the hippo, like, the personality of the hippo, I thought was very good. So I really enjoyed the stuff of seeing the goddess of fertility. I thought that was very cool. And it was funny because she explains that you guys need to balance out the scales. Since you guys have two hearts, you have to balance out the scales if you guys want to get to the field of reeds. So we get the moment where, like, they are going through each other's memories, and we see, like, the moment where, like, Mark ends up beating the jackal in the bathroom. There's a door to that room. There's a room where, like, Steven is turning back time with Khonshu, and Mark's like, wow, that's impressive. And they're kind of, like, at awe of each other's moments in a way. And it was very interesting because we get to the moment where, like, it looks like, at least I thought it was Jake standing by a car, but it ends up being Mark, and we get to that point. And that was very interesting because in my head I'm like, oh my god, is that Jake Lockley? Is that the personality of Jake Lockley? But it ended up not being. We still haven't gotten Jake at all in this episode, or even any hint to Jake at all in this episode, which was very weird to me. Which makes me wonder if we're gonna get any Jake in the next episode, or if they going to save that. I understand that Oscar Isaac and Marvel, which is Kevin Feige, came out saying that this is just going to be a one and done series, but it makes me feel like that Marvel's not dumb enough to like make this series a one and done, or even hell make a movie or something for how popular this character is and how popular the show has been. So I feel like that I would not be surprised if we don't get Jake at all, and they're planning on doing it maybe in a season 2, which would be kind of disappointing because I feel like we're seeing all these other personalities of Jake and no, not Jake, I mean Steven and Mark. I feel like when we're in the point of right now where I can't imagine us not seeing Steven at all, especially in the last us not seeing Jake at all, especially in the last episode. So I'm hoping we see Jake in the next episode. If we don't, I'll be disappointed, but I feel like we'll get it at some point. But the pretty much the reason that Mark doesn't want Steven to see any of his moments of his life is because Mark is afraid Steven to officially find out that Steven isn't real. And the way of the way of Steven thinks of his mother is that his mother used it wasn't apparently at the point of her grief, she pretty much was abusing essentially Mark, and Steven thinks that his mother wouldn't do that, but actually in the scheme of things his mom did do that, because in a way they're the same person, but this is the point of his mother's grief of the death of her son, of her youngest son, and pretty much blames Mark for the death of his little brother, which that was a very sad sequence where Steven goes in trying to is outside of things, seeing Mark take his little brother, and and I guess their favorite movie was the whole the movie that we saw at the beginning of at the end of the last episode, which was that adventure movie and the adventures of Stephen Grant. So they were playing that, and they were going in this cave, and it was raining, and Mark's little brother died, and his mom blamed Mark for the death of her youngest son, and that was very hard to see. That was not easy to see. That I felt very bad, and that's what he was kind of he made this persona, made this alter of Steven because of how much trauma he was enduring from his mom, of also the passing of his brother, and how his mom blames him for the passing of his little brother, and he made that persona of Steven trying to get away from his mother, and trying to get away from and start what I mean, and trying to and not deal with all of the trauma he dealt with. So he went and created Steven. And Steven just is not processing this. Is this what I mean? He's Mark's this is why I was trying to keep this from you. I didn't want you to see this. I didn't want you to know that you're not real. And he's what do you mean I'm not real? And we get a lot of flip-flopping back and forth to the moment on their way to the Field of Reeds, and on the scaling of we get back into the moment of kind of Arthur Harrow is kind of being their guide, essentially, is being their therapist, trying to get them to come to terms with the fact that in a way that Steven isn't real. Essentially, he's trying to get them to come to the terms of the fact of that if you're going to get to the Field of Reeds, you need the way to balance yourself out is to stop the personality that isn't real. And that was very sad to see that moment where there's a big fight going on the boat going to the Field of Reeds, but hell, they're not even going to the Field of Reeds at this point. They're trying to get to the gate, I guess, so they could get back to Earth, it seems so they can stop Harrow. But in the big fight that ends up happening, they didn't have time to balance out their scales because so much is happening with Steven trying to come to terms that he's not real, and that and him finding out from Mark that his mother passed. And he's what do you mean I've been talking to my mother all this time? And he's no, you think you've been talking to our mother, but it's actually that you didn't know that she passed because I was in control of that time. You know what I mean? You thought you were your own person, but you weren't. It's I went and turned, and turned on you when I wanted to get away from my emotions and stuff like that. And that was very hard for Steven to process that. So we keep flip-flopping back from Mark to Steven to Harrow as their kind of guide, trying to balance them out so they can get to the Field of Reeds. So that was a very cool sequence, the whole bouncing back and forth. There was a lot of bouncing back and forth. Sometimes it was kind of hard for me to keep track of really what was going on, to who Harrow was exactly to them, but I kind of figured that he was kind of their guide, their therapist, trying to guide them to peace, essentially. So that was just very interesting. They did what was familiar of all the stuff that Steven and Mark saw. That was that room of them, on the boat to get to the field of reeds. And again, the goddess of fertility was trying to like guide their path as well to get them to where they needed to go. It's either that they could balance out their scales or they get thrown overboard and they get trapped in the sands of the underworld, which was very sad because we do end up seeing in the fight between where like all the people, since they didn't have time to balance out their scales, we see the people that were in the sands of the underworld come over trying to drag them down and trying to get them overboard. And we do end up seeing Steven come to terms with like he said in that last episode, saying it's muscle memory or like I think it was the last episode or maybe been the episode before where he's like, oh, it must be muscle memory for me. Like, you know what I mean? You have all your fighting skills. I bet it's muscle memory for me where I know what's in there. I could just learn. I know how to fight. So we do see that moment where he ends up fighting the people that, the sands of the underworld, trying to get them off the boat. But him saving Mark is him going overboard and him getting trapped in the sands. And the point of like when Mark's like stopped the boat because he wants to save Steven, when him saying stop the boat, he ends up balancing out his scales and then he ends up going into the field of reeds without Steven. So it's kind of like we go on this journey of like, Steven finding out that he's not real and Mark kind of coming to terms in a way that like, you know what I mean? He's coming to terms with like, he used Steven as a way of getting away from his life. And I guess that's what needed to happen so they could be like, so that, he could balance the scales and go. Or it's like a sense of like him getting like coming to terms and Steven falling off the boat was him balancing out his life going forward. I feel like there's two ways we could, like make that. It's like, oh, you have that other side you don't have to deal with anymore. But it's like Mark wants to be with Steven. So it was a sad moment to see when Steven went overboard. It was like a part of Mark's baggage that was leaving was Steven, and him having to escape from his true reality is like that baggage is gone now, and it's something that he's been wanting. But now, like, it's like Mark's regretting Steven. Mark doesn't want that anymore. He wants Steven to be with him. So that was very sad to see Steven being frozen up in sand and being left behind, while Mark got to go to the field of reeds in peace. When it's like all Steven's been wanting is all he thought is that he was a real person. All he wanted was to be left alone from Mark. And it's like Mark got what Steven would have wanted, to be left alone and wanted peace. And it's kind of like, and Mark just wanted to die and just, and just didn't want anything. He just didn't want anything anymore. So it's like they got the total opposite of what each other wanted. So that was very sad to see that. I'm just wondering how they're going to conclude this, because clearly Mark wants to be with Steven. They clearly were on the same page of going to Earth, stopping Harrow, because we see a rain of loss of souls that, are like flying from the sky, which is Harrow pretty much judging people that, that shouldn't really be judged, because he shouldn't be playing, judge in, judge at all, by him, trying to, do the bidding of Ahmet. So it makes me wonder what's really going on the outside. Is Layla okay? What is Harrow really doing besides all the souls falling? So he's still doing what he's doing. Did he get the artifact, like Ahmet's, artifact? Did he get it? We don't know. We don't know if, like, I know Steven will, like, Mark will get Steven back somehow and they'll get out, but I don't really know what Harrow is doing. Does he have Ahmet's, soul, like her statue? Does he have it? Is Layla okay? Like, we don't know these questions, and that's what makes me worried how we're going to finish this all off in the next episode, because I felt like I said, this series has been so perfectly paced. I'm just worried on how they're, like, I don't want it to be rushed for the last episode, because we have a lot now, trying to get Steven out of, the sands of the underworld, trying to get, also Mark trying to get out of the field of reeds to get Steven so they can get back to Earth and get back into their body. How are they going to get Khonshu out of the statue? We don't know how they're going to do that. So they have the power and enough, like, to stop Arthur Harrow. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we don't know what's going to happen. So I'm excited to see how this is all end, but I am concerned because there's a lot of things there's a lot of things they left this episode of, like, how are they going to end this story? How is everything going to conclude? And when are we going to see Jake? Because we haven't seen Jake. How are they going to fit in Jake in this next episode? We don't know. So that's why I'm hoping this is a longer episode, the finale, because they have a lot to finish off to end this story. But yeah, guys, I'm excited to hear what you guys have to say about this episode. I like this episode. Like, I'm not saying I didn't like it. I loved this episode. There was a lot of emotion in seeing, like, seeing Mark's life and seeing, and we already know Steven's life, essentially. But seeing the moments where Mark, as a kid, turned into Steven, that was very sad. I mean, the moment where, like, Mark lost control of of like him doing it in will of him turning into Steven. He lost it at his mom's, when Mark, was at, got asked to come to his mom's funeral. He was just in so of emotion of like, oh, I'm not gonna let her get any of emotion out of me and stuff like that, and pretty much lost control and turned into unwillingly. So it's like that's when he lost all control. Because Mark even said to Steven that at first I was able to control when we turned into one another, but now I lost like all control. We saw that moment, we heard about that moment, but now we got to see of like the moment where like he lost all control of turning into Steven. So, that was very interesting to get an explanation on when that all happened. But I just really felt bad for Steven in this episode. I really felt bad for Mark in this episode that he had to he was so, so in pain of the way his mom was treating him that he had to be somebody else. So that was just really sad to see that. And I just think that the score was beautiful. I thought the cinematography was beautiful in this episode. I'm just really loving, especially we got the moment that I've been wanting, where we do see the moment where Mark rolls up to Khonshu's statue and pretty much and gets the power of Khonshu. We get that moment, which was beautiful to see that moment. I was hoping we would see it, and we did. So yeah, I'm just loving what we got in this episode, and I'm hoping they don't rush the finale. But guys, I can't wait to hear down in the comments below what you guys thought about this episode. Let me know. Do you guys think we're going to see Jake in the next episode? Do you guys think we will? Do you guys think we won't see Jake in the next episode? Do you guys think that the next episode will be longer? Are you guys afraid that that there's so much that they have to wrap up in the next episode? It might feel rushed. I want to know what you guys have to say down in the comments below. Yet again, if you're new to the channel, subscribe to the channel, put in notifications, like this video. I would love to have you guys here, a part of the fam, a part of the channel. We're all about spreading love, positivity, and motivation. And guys, yet again, we are almost to 500 subscribers. Right now, we're at 449. Actually, I think we're at 490 now, or 449. We're almost to 500. So yet again, if you've come across my videos before, I would just love it again if you subscribe to the channel, put on those notifications, like this video, because I would love to have you here, a part of the family. But yeah, guys, that was the episode 5 of Moon Knight, called The Asylum. I'll see you guys next Wednesday, so I hope everybody has a great day, a safe day. I'll see you guys next Wednesday for the finale of Moon Knight. Peace.